Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be getting my thoughts and opinions on some 2025 lineups from various different media companies. We will be talking about GMMTV, Change 2561, and some independent ones that I'm hoping they get enough funding because the series that they have for their lineup are very interesting. But before we begin, please like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know down below if you've heard of any of these independent media companies, and let's begin. So the first one I'm going to be talking about are the lineup that were provided from Change 2561, which is the same media company that gave us Pit Babe and soon Pit Babe Season 2, as well as the GL TV series Affair, which I will be doing a review on that one soon, so stay tuned for that one. But I wanted to give my quick little tidbits on the lineups that were given to us for Change 2561. I had to write down notes, you guys, because it's just quite a few. So the first one is Goddess Bless You from Death, and I was like, this is a little scary. So Goddess Bless You to that, from what I was able to grasp from the pilot, was we follow two main characters, Ku and Pavel, as they have to figure out why there are human sacrifices happening in town, and Ku's character is able to see and interact with the dead, I believe, but Pavel, his presence, is able to block that interaction, so they have somewhat of a relationship as they're trying to figure out why Ku's character was tied up the way he was. And from what I saw, I would consider it probably a psychological thriller with some aspects of horror and gore. And you guys, I don't do too well with gore, so when I genuinely say I screamed for this particular scene, which I'll place right here, that thing was nasty. Which means they did their big one with that one. I hope this one gets released soon. At this point, I'm not too sure, as Pit Babe Season 2 was just announced that it's going to be coming out next month. So who knows if this will get greenlit. The other one that I really liked was I'm the Most Beautiful Count. This one has been approved for production, and it follows the Nut, who was also in Pit Babe, which if you saw my other video for Pit Babe, you know I did not like his character, not one bit at all. But in this one, it's giving very, very comedic. It's very fabulous, and it follows Nut's character as he is transmigrated into a different time period in Thailand, where he is a heir to a rich noble family, and they are trying to have him married off to someone else because it turns out even in this universe he is very much for the gays, and he apparently has 3 potential suitors, and now we have to figure out how he's going to get back to his regular life of an actor and maybe be a little messy along the way. So I'm actually quite excited for that one. I'm not too sure when it's going to be released. I just know that it has been greenlit for production and it's currently being made. I will link any information as to when that potential air date is, but as of right now, we just know it's in production. So the other two were announced in their lineup in 2024 for this year was Affair, which is the one I'm going to do a review on soon, which follows 2 childhood best friends, where one of them was basically raised in a very affluent family, and she is from what I could remember from the trailer, is she studies music and she was on the path of being a well-renowned composer. However, her father unfortunately decides to exit in front of her, and she has to navigate her world without her stepfather. The person who is by her side during this is the daughter of her maid, who they have been together since they were little kids. However, they might be more than just friends. And the reason why it's an affair is because, yes, cheating is involved. I personally do not condone cheating. I think cheating is terrible. However, I do like it in a messy drama. So I will be watching that one. I'm currently in episode 1. So stay tuned for my review on that one. The next one that was also released is This Love Doesn't Have Long Beans. And my little notes on this is chef on the verge of bankruptcy gets seduced by twink who has a sniffing fetish. Y'all, was I out of pocket for that commentary? Yes. But is it not the premise of the show? Also, yes. I did not really care much for this one from the trailer that I saw. However, I will give it I'll probably watch the first episode and then probably give you guys an update. And if I do end up liking it, then I'll give a review. If not, I'll probably just post my thoughts and opinions on Twitter. The other one that they also released was called Time, and it is basically a TV series where we follow the main character who has to basically take out 5 people for her to go back 5 years in time so she can take out her killer. Which, honestly, who is cooking it up in Change 2561? But you were in your bag for that one. If you guys know where I can watch it legally, please let me know, because that one seemed very, very intriguing. The other media production that I want to give a shout out to is GO2 Infinity. Sometimes YouTube does give you some recommendations, piloted series, and depending on how much attention that pilot gets, that's how the media production could get the get the greenlit investors and things like that. So this one in particular, I hope gets the go ahead for, because as someone who loves everything mermaid related, I was born on an island, I lived on an island, I used to be at the beach 24/7. I am with it. So this one is called Lover Merman, and I basically consider it a crossover between The Little Mermaid and H2O. And if you love both of those individual series, then you are gonna love this one. It basically follows this guy who ends up doing a mini vacation at this resort, if I'm not mistaken, and he ends up falling in love with the bartender, but the bartender is actually a merman who has to return to the ocean every time there's a full moon in order to detoxify his body, because in order for him to be a human, he has to do these various rituals and things like that. And there is the potential of people trying to capture the mermaids for their powers and things like that. So I am super stoked with that one. I truly hope it gets greenlit. From what I saw, it had 1 million views, so hopefully they get enough investment, because that one is going to be so beautiful. And also, you guys, the tails, like, honestly, props to the production team and the costume crew, because it was giving Little Mermaid 2023. The next, and by the way, none of this is sponsored. I wish it was, but I genuinely just saw these and I was like, more people need to see these pilots because it's just so good. The other media production company that I watched their pilots for was FRT, and they have 3 series that they're currently have pilots available on their YouTube channel. The first one is called Rearrange, and if you were a fan of Given, you're gonna love this one. It is giving very much Given the manga and the anime. However, there is a twist. No one self-exits. However, there is a time travel aspect and a very messy love square. And I love a love square, because at the end of the day, each corner is going to get some type of love. It just may not be the love that they're looking for. So that one seemed very, very interesting. The other one is called Shades, and this is a GL series, and I really appreciate that Thailand is dipping into their GL bag, because we need more girl love shows out there, and I need them to be messy. As just how the BLs be messy, I need the GL to be a little messy too. And this one is very messy. My notes for this one is messy girls in a Catholic school. What Mean Girls should have been like. So let me just break that down for you guys. So basically, Shades is the setting is a Catholic school, and as someone who was raised Catholic, I don't know about y'all, but the Catholic Church, traumatic to say the least. If you guys have ever watched the Netflix limited series Al Arabi School for Girls, it's giving that, but make it Catholic and a little bit more unhinged. Well, because Al Arabi was very unhinged, but this one is even more unhinged because we got the nuns being in on it. We got the girls cutting up girls in more ways than one. We got the teachers being messy. This one is giving, what if we, the last one that's available from FRT is By My Boss, and it's another GL, and this one is, from my notes I have here, Devil Wears Prada, but they're sleeping with each other. So the main character goes for a one-night stand, and it turns out that the person that she was sleeping with turns out to be her boss at this fashion studio, and things get a little messy, things get a little toxic. There are exes involved, there's people trying to take out other people, and there's also like a fashion show in the midst of it. Like, it's getting very high stress, high meow. So that one I'm excited to see the full production for, because the lighting, the music, the cinematography for all three of these shows, from just the pilot, it's giving production, and I'm here for it. The next media production company that I'm excited to see their TV show for is called Mind Media Production, and their series called Clarabelle. Y'all, I personally have never watched Orange is the New Black, but it was giving Orange is the New Black. Like, I know the premise of the show, but this one gets a little messier. So we basically follow Claire, who gets indicted in jail for possessing something she shouldn't have. However, she claims her innocence, stating that she does not know how it got in her possession, as she was drunk and they just found it in her purse when the club got raided. And now she's in a all-women's jail, and it sucks. It sucks. Because she went from living her life to being locked up in penitentiary with all these other women who are out to get her, and she's just like, peace, I'm just but a girl. And in the process of being severely bullied in the cafeteria by the head BITCH, she is saved by Maribel, and Maribel is the one inmate that not even the prison guards like to mess with because she is deranged. However, when we get to see a little bit of her backstory, there's more than meets the eye in terms of why Maribel is in jail. And Claire, I guess the derangement was very much inviting for her, because she ends up being Maribel's girl, and we kind of see how that unveils from the snippets from the pilot. It seems like it's really intense, really fast, very crazy, and I'm excited for this one as well, because the production was amazing, the lighting, the score, everything. So that one is another one that I would highly suggest that you guys give it a watch. The last media production company I want to talk about is GMMTV. Now, we all know this one. This is like our bread and butter. Everybody and their mama know about GMTV. But their lineup for these shows have had a change in the main actors. However, I still think the stories are still going to be amazing. But the ones that I am truly ecstatic to see is Ticket to Heaven, because one thing about me, I love the story about Catholic trauma and how it goes against everything that you were raised on, especially when you are queer. So I'm excited for that one because my notes for that one is gay Catholic guilt, love Jesus but sucking is a sin. You know? Yeah. So then the other one that I have, my second one from the lineup was Memoir of Ratty. And this one, and it's a historical time period one where we follow a French teacher who may or may not have gotten into a messy love triangle with the nobleman of the village. And honestly, it's not his fault for being fine. And speaking French, like, it's not his fault. So that one is very interesting. One thing I do love about from the pilot itself, the production and the clothing was beautiful to a T. I absolutely adore when we get to see the different costumes or rather the different articles of clothing that depicts the time period that we're in for each country, because it's just so cool seeing how fashion has evolved from what people used to wear in the 1900s to now in 2025. So I'm actually excited to see that one, mainly because of how intricate the costume and time setting is and the general premise of the show. The next one I am excited to see is Dare You to Death, because it brings back my favorite pairing, Jung and Dong. I adore their interactions, and this one is basically the reverse of Heart Killers, which I recently did a review on if you want to go check that out. And basically we follow Jung, who is a policeman who is trying to figure out why these teenagers are just dropping dead. And Dunk is sort of like an inspector that is assigned to this particular job to figure out what is going on. So this one I consider a crossover between Saw, the series of movies, and Liar Game. If you have ever read that manga from the early 2000s, you know what I'm talking about, where basically these people are assigned a card in order to end up winning the game and winning $1 million, but in doing so they have to take out people. This is Dare You to Death has a similar premise. However, I really can't tell who is causing all of this. I just know that people are dropping dead left and right like flies, and Jung's sibling in the show might know something about it. The last one I have is Melody of Secrets, and my notes for this one is those scary twins from The Shining, but it's a man who's a criminologist, question mark. But basically we follow the main character who has to figure out whether or not his lover is real or if it's a doppelganger. Like, the trailer for that one, well, the pilot for that one was just all types of question mark. Like, I love a good crime thriller, and this one definitely has all the aspects of a good one. I would say this one is kind of similar to the aspects of Hannibal Lecter. However, there is no eating of the people. However, there are a lot of psychological twists and turns. So I'm excited to see how that one actually is once it gets greenlit. And I do have some honorable mentions. I have Me and Thee, which has my other favorite BL pair, which is Pon and Puin. And this one is basically a very cutesy himbo mafia falls in love with a carefree photographer. So that was really cute. And then the last one I have is Love You Teacher, which is basically where we follow the main character who has a job as a primary school teacher, but he hates kids. But the only reason why he's in it is because he wants to be near his boyfriend, who ends up having a concussion and will sometimes revert to a 7-year-old. So the dynamic of trying to figure out, like, this is still my partner, but right now they have the mentality of a 7-year-old, but the next day they might be the mentality of my regular 30-year-old boyfriend. It has a very interesting premise. So that one seems very cute to me. I'm not too sure if any of these shows for GMMTV in particular, if they have gotten the greenlit as of yet, because again, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the actors for some of these series have had to drop out for personal reasons, and GMMTV has subbed in for other actors to take in the roles. So who knows? Sometimes I know when that happens, we get into production hell and then we end up not having the show at all. So hopefully that isn't the case, especially for Ticket to Heaven, because that one in particular, I'm really hoping it does get the green lit for that one, because again, who doesn't love a good Catholic guilt show? Like, I'm all here for it. But yeah, that was my little opinions and thoughts on the recent lineups from Change 2561, GMMTV, and a little shout out to those three media companies, FRT, G02, and Mind Media Production. Again, I would highly urge you guys to check out their YouTube channels and their social handles so we can get these shows the fanfare that they deserve, because these shows, their pilots in particular, were just so good, and I really hope they're able to get the backing for it. Comment down below if there's any pilot series that you recently have watched that may have escaped production hell, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!